Okay, I guess now it's time to start painting. We're going to paint, for the first thing, is a high-heeled shoe. I thought Jennifer would like these a lot, and so would everybody else, because what's more fun than wearing a nice high-heeled shoe? Now what we're going to do is we're going to clean up the hole, because it's a little bit rough around the edges. Go back ways. And then I noticed that there's kind of some sharp edges here. I just want to run the rasp over it to knock off any sharp pieces. Okay, now we've cleaned off the ornament, and now what we're going to do is we are going to do some dry brushing. Now the first thing you want to do when dry brushing is you want to paint a base coat on your piece. Now this entire shoe is going to be painted pink. So we're going to paint the whole thing, so we just need a paper towel here, and I've got a nice paintbrush in here that I want to paint with. Dry off some of that water. And I'm going to take my safety glasses off so I can put my regular glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. We're going to paint the whole shoe pink, or whatever color you want. Pick your 3 favorite colors in the same color family if you're going to do dry brushing, basically one type of color, because you want to go from dark to light. Now the other thing is you're going to get really covered with paint, but that's okay. It washes off, but it won't wash out of your clothes if it dries. So make sure you're wearing old clothes. That should have been in the preparation of what to get ready for. Wear old clothes. How did I miss that? Now this first coat, you want to make sure that you cover up all the white. There's a lot of texture on this ornament, so you want to get into all the nooks and crannies with your paint. You can always add a little more paint to your palette, but you can't put it back if you take too much. Now go ahead and paint the back as well. Now if you're painting an ornament that has lots of different colors, you'll want to be real careful about how you paint the back. Are you going to try to mimic what's on the front, or are you just going to paint it one solid color? That's a personal choice. You can do whatever you decide to do. On these edges, there's lots of, because of the way I made them, and I made a lot of texture on the edges, you want to make sure you work that paint into all those nooks and crannies. Okay, now we want this to be completely dry before we go on to the next step. So I'm going to rinse my brush out because I'm done with that step. So I put the brush in the water, giving it a little swirl to try to clean it off, but it's not necessary to super clean it until we're ready to use it on the next color. All right, the next step in this process is the first time we'll be actually dry brushing. And so what you want to do, I'm using the medium dry brush, and I just barely stick the tip into the paint. Oops. Because what you're going to do next, you've just got a little drop of paint on the end of the brush. You're going to swirl it around in a circle on your paper plate. And you'll see that it's quite a damp little circle. And if you brush it, you'll see more paint coming off the brush. So then what you want to do is go back and forth along the rim until you can barely see any pink coming off the brush. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to start brushing back and forth over the shoe. And what it does is it starts getting those designs in the clay to pop out. to just be very noticeable. Get some more paint in the brush, and I'm swirling it around in a circle. As you can see, there's still quite a lot of paint coming off the brush. You do not want to dry brush when there's that much paint coming off your paintbrush. So just drag it back and forth across the paper plate edges and start again. Now this shoe has snowflakes on it, which I believe most of you have. I sent Jennifer some with flowers on it, so there's a couple different ways she can choose to do hers. All right, so let's get a close-up shot. On this side is where I did the dry brushing, and you can see how the different snowflakes are popping out away from the darker pink. And this is where they were just darker pink without any dry brushing on them. So now I'm going to finish dry brushing the rest of the ornament, and then we'll move on to the next step, which will be dry brushing some white on there. Now you want to make sure you get all around the edges on the top, because there's a lot of texture and detail there. You want that to be very noticeable. Now you want to get your sides. So again, load your paint onto the brush, not too much, just barely cover the bottom of the brush. Swirl it. By swirling it, it makes the paint get on every single little bristle in the paintbrush. And then you just drag the paintbrush on the paper plate, and then along the edges. Okay, now we're going to dry brush the edges. Now the nice thing about dry brushing is when you're applying paint in this manner, it dries almost instantly, so you can then move on to the next lighter color. What we're going to do is move on to a white, because they are snowflakes. So let's see if we can get these snowflakes to pop a little more with just the white. Just use some of my pink. Okay. Now what you want to do is just really rub that brush on the paper plate. You don't want to see any more color coming off. Just keep rubbing it until you don't see any more color. Because once you add that third color, the white, it'll either go light pink, or if it's dry enough, it'll show up as just white. Okay, here we go with the white. It's still coming out kind of pink. So I'm just going to rub the paint. Get some more white on. Let's see if that does any better. Okay. Here we go. You just want to try and hit just the snowflakes in the design and the edges of your shoe. Okay. Now we can show you the shoe. Now the next thing you'll want to do is to give it some real pizzazz. This is the sparkle paint. And now you'll notice, because you use a regular paintbrush to spread it on, now it's going to come out like it looks kind of white. Now just, you've taken your paintbrush and made sure you got all the paint out of it, your dry brush. Set that aside. Do not put this dry brush in water. Set it to the side. Okay. Now be careful you don't mix up your white glitter paint. Well, it's clear, but when it dries, it looks white now. Don't mix up your white glitter paint with your white regular paint. And you're just going to dip it in the glitter glue or glitter paint and just paint the whole shoe, front and back. And what that's going to do when it dries is going to be very sparkly. And it'll give it just that nice extra special look that Christmas ornaments should have. Nice sparkle. Just go all the way around. You're going to get glitter paint all over your fingers, but that's all right. It washes off. There, we got the edges done. Now we're going to do the back. And then once this is dry, it's time to put the string on, or the twine, or the ribbon, whatever you feel like putting on there. Okay, now we're done with painting this shoe. Going to set it aside. See how it turned everything kind of white and across the edges, but when it dries, it's going to be just nice and sparkly, and the dry brushing paint will show up. Now, we've finished with this brush for right now, so go ahead and put it into the water so that it doesn't dry on your brush bristles. Since that's just waiting to dry and have its ribbons put on, we can start with another process, which is the tie-dyeing dry brushing.